Leon, are you recording now? I think you said you are. So this live, I should be able to hear. If I tune into less now, I should be able to
Yes,
hear my own voice on this.
yes, he is recording.
Okay. All right, y'all. Well, for all those listeners who've just tuned in and you're hearing all this discussion at the beginning, we're working out something new where I'm doing my show from another location. And there are still some technical things that we need to sort out to get everything moving more smoothly. But yes. So at the moment, there's going to be no intro music and so forth. It's just going to be straight talk, you know? So, yes. So you're tuned into Brother Siayome, aka Cosmic El Mystic, and App on Krem. And yeah, this evening uh, talk and discourse, we can say, is on this up and coming full moon that we're having in Aquarius. And well, the continuation of the energy that's been surfacing and which is behind a lot of the emotional a lot of stuff going on in the world. It's like you're talking about the collective trauma, emotional trauma that's been coming up based upon the activities that's been going on, and these collective activations, or I should say, the activation on the collective level also trickles down into the individuals. So, um, the previous show with Brother Sard and Brother Gregory, there are certain topics that I will still go into that has also been discussed on tonight's show of the Grail Message. And, pertaining to the fact that our soul transcends the physical vehicle and the nature of the soul and whom we are. And this is kind of a repetitive theme um, that as a thread going through both our shows, the show previous to mine, The Grail Message, and my show, Cosmic Roots. So, Cosmic Roots is cosmic reality of one's true self. So, I will go into firstly dealing with the energies that are ramping up and have been increasing. And before I go into that, let me just kind of clarify something about why I'm gonna talk when I'm talking from the angle of astrology. Not that I do so all the time, but there's times I feel it's pertinent. And if you can imagine, you got a clock, okay? And if you notice that your clock's got the numbers from 12, well, from 1 to 12, okay? So you got 12 numbers there. And these correlate also to the 12 signs or star constellations, okay? That is where you get even the idea of a watch manufactured, man-made, the watch you wear on your wrist that you keep watching as time. You're watching time. But that time, that kind of time ain't really real. That's all manufactured and man-made. When you're dealing with the cosmic clock, though, which is also the astrological clock, cosmic clock, you're dealing with more about, because we exist having our physical experiences within time and space. This is when we're dealing with our physical vehicle, our mind, these instruments, we can say, for this time and space bodysuit we're in. And it's necessary where we are dealing with activation points within time and space for various transformations to take place. And these are what you're talking about as transits, conjunctions, These are activation points for certain things to occur on a cosmic level, collectively and individually, for the soul, okay? Because we're here for our soul's purpose. We've been on this plane, there is a manufactured, man made conditioning that conditions you out from your intrinsic self. Intrinsic meaning your natural, inward, or internal identity and relationship with the self, the I, the authentic I, the isness of you, the spiritual being that we all are. Okay? So, astrology, I will say, all right, the cosmic clock, yeah, is operating like an activator within time and space for certain events to take place. So this is the reason why certain things happen at certain times, okay? And each astrological sign is for a period of 2,150 years. So this is why we talk about ages, the age of Aquarius that we're in now. Prior to that, we were dealing with the age of Pisces, which also is correlated to Christ. Yeah, when we talk about Christ and the Pisces, the two fishes, and so forth, you know, that is relating to relating to that time period. So we're moving out from that time period into a new time period of an age, so to speak, which is now called Aquarius because it's the next sign when you're going um, from Pisces to Aquarius. Okay, the next age that we'll come into after the next 2,150 years will be the age of Capricorn. Okay, and a lot of energies based on the planetary um, energies now. There is Pluto and Saturn that's in Capricorn. So just giving you this because I know some people don't, their idea of astrology is maybe more on a social media, newspaper type of level, which just deals with the personality traits. And that is kind of just talking about your mundane self, dealing with society. And society is basically also the programming and also cultural programming, when you're just dealing with the personality rather than yourself as a soul, which transcends this physical vehicle and the human manufactured ideas of life and living and identity. So this cosmic clock, you know, activates certain points in order to perpetuate the further growth and expansion of the soul's consciousness. What one is coming here in order to develop. Okay? So we are into this full moon in Aquarius. And this full moon, which is going to take place on Thursday, the 15th of August. And what we got going on also is on the 11th of August, we've had Jupiter going stationary in order to prepare itself to go direct, which it's starting to do now. Now, Jupiter has been in retrograde since April, okay? So all of these things are all within us, okay? You know, we contain it all. We're all within the all. Some may have from a scriptural, and when I talk scripture, I don't mean religion. I'm talking about various knowledge that transcends the man-made beliefs, okay, that have been recorded and preserved for the guidance of humanity, or I should say for the guidance of the soul that's dwelling within what we call humanity, which is, this identity of the physical corporeal vehicle, instrument, yeah, of the soul. So what's going on is that this full moon is bringing forth a culmination point. A culmination point is where, just like, what the word says, full moon. So something's coming to a completion. And an emotional body activation that took place with the solar eclipse in Cancer is what now is coming to that culminating point, okay, where the energies are now beginning to shift from this long introspective reflection, while we had a lot of activity going on within Cancer. Cancer is a water sign, is feminine. In each of the signs, you have masculine and feminine, masculine and feminine, masculine and feminine. So, you're dealing with natural laws, you're dealing with divine order, you're dealing with how the masculine and feminine complement one another in their creative powers, in their creative purposes. And it's not limiting or to be perceived in a fixed idea of man and woman when we're talking about when we're talking about these things, when we use the term masculine and feminine. We're not talking about from the manufactured human man-made definitions or interpretations of man and woman, as in the man psyche or the female psyche. We're talking about cosmic forces that transcend these limited definitions based upon manufactured ideas. Okay, so the moon is feminine. Okay, it rules and governs the sign Cancer, which is about nurturing, emotional nurturing, and development on an emotional level. To be, when we're talking about emotional security is correlates with Cancer. Okay, well, with all of the water signs in a different aspect. So Cancer is about our emotional attachments to where we derive our sense of security, emotional security, and a sense of feeling emotionally nurtured and loved. Okay, and it governs the fourth house relating to the mother, the womb, early childhood development from 0 to 7, where the subconscious is wide open and very exposed to the emotional imprints that get impressed upon the subconscious. The subconscious is also um, another term for the heart, because when we're dealing with the moon, you're talking about emotions. And you have people uh, have talked about, you may have heard folks talking about how the moon is being used to manipulate the masses, okay? And you got other talks about how the moon isn't real, it's not a natural body in the heavens, um, and it's basically some artificial structure that's being used and manned or being occupied by other beings, okay, from different realms. You got a lot of stories on a lot of things. Some of it is true, and a lot of it is taken out of context and only focused on a certain particular part, rather than dealing with a holistic view on all of this stuff. But when you're talking about the moon being used to manipulate the the masses of the people on this planet, that is that can be that is possible, because when you're dealing with the emotional body, you can see that a lot of things here with the media, with the TV, you step out your street, so much advertisement, everything is trying to take your attention away from yourself towards what is put there for you to be distracted by. So, so this distraction takes your energy, because there's a term where it's where attention goes, energy flows. Okay, so having your energy being distracted to flow in other directions that are not for your benefit, where your energy is getting drawn away from yourself rather than you focusing your energy back into yourself. This is what you can call the manipulation. And the emotions correlating to the feeling nature and the subconscious And what is impressed in the subconscious based on how you feel about yourself is what actually is the fuel or the energy that creates that particular perception one has based upon how you feel. Um, Feelings are very important when it comes to creation and experiencing life. But a lot of us are have been dealing with a lot of when you're dealing with a society, uh, whether you're talking about the political structure or the social structure or the um, indoctrinations we receive about how something as an authority external to you based upon a system wants you to identify with yourself in order for you to operate within a certain station in a system or within society. But the thing is, society is a manufactured construct that has basically, from the time we are born, we come through, you know, the mother, the feminine principle, the womb. The mother constructs this physical vehicle, you can say, or the physical vehicle is constructed within the womb of the mother, the female, right? And that becomes the conduit for our soul to uh, enter into this dimension, okay? Because our souls come from a different dimension. In fact, our souls, which is the divine consciousness of us, is timeless. Now, there's different type of leanings of what we would say teachings or views upon spirituality, upon whether, you know, the human, so-called human, which breaks down to really referring to your earthly vehicle, yeah, because human means earth, dust, soil, and it's really pertaining to the physical earthly vehicle, okay? And what pertains to the physical earthly vehicle, your mind works with your body, okay? But your soul, which is the, you can say, the true rider of the horse or the true driver of the vehicle, is the authentic I-ness or isness of each individual. So we come in here as a soul for the soul's purpose, for your soul's for further maturity, growth, and development and expansion of the inner light, the inner life, the consciousness. Because consciousness is more than just being aware that, you know, of the food you eat, the clothes you wear, the label you may call yourself, or the ideologies and man-made concepts that people buy into to define themselves. Your soul transcends all of that stuff. But you are dealing with a creative vehicle that has been done by a creative, intelligent being, which is your soul, okay? Which is the spiritual being rather than the human being or being human. Being human is like you're saying you're being earthly, you're being physical, your beingness is being identified with a physical vehicle that is really an instrument, okay? It's an instrument. And it's also a conduit for how we process our emotional experiences. We process this through the body, okay? So our physical bodies are a conduit where we process our unresolved emotional dynamics. So that word, emotional dynamics. Well, a lot of emotional dynamics have been triggered to come up through the previous solar eclipse that we've had in Cancer. We're talking about the emotional body, and we have had a lot of when we're talking about the emotional dynamics as well, it's also referring to the deep subconscious or the unconscious subconscious, okay, aspect of ourselves, where the conscious mind is is not usually aware of. So when we get triggered, or when there is a cosmic activation that triggers these deep emotional states, these emotional dynamics to come up, they've been termed the shadow. Okay, the shadow is where the light has not penetrated and illuminated as yet, and it also represents that dark, hidden aspect of ourselves that we're unaware of, but yet it exists. It's there as the emotional state, the emotional conditioning, the emotional, um, yeah, the emotional dynamics, as I said before, that are have been suppressed or repressed. Yeah, repression is when you could have a trigger where what the emotional dynamics that has been suppressed comes up. It's coming up to be cleared, but then the mind and the conditioning kind of gets afraid, and then you try to push down what's coming up. You try to press it, push it back down again. So that becomes repression. Now, with all of that energy, there's a term, you can neither energy can neither be created nor destroyed. Now, the thing is, we're not just talking about blind mechanical energy. We're talking about life. We're talking about consciousness and life. This is the reason why life can, you can't create nor destroy life. Okay? But when we're talking about vehicles for that life creates to experience and express itself through, um, those vehicles, referring to our bodies and structures, they exist in time and space, and they have a beginning and an ending. Okay? But the intrinsic self, the intrinsic I of oneself, that is timeless and eternal and immortal and indestructible. So, what we are, you've noticed people, well, I've just come off the phone also earlier today with a friend of mine, a brother of mine I haven't spoken to for quite some time. And himself, as well as various other people included, as well as myself, yeah, we've been experiencing, when you're very much aware, you can say, you're going to be sensitive to these subtler vibrations and energies. Sometimes being ignorant does help you out because you don't have to go through in the same way um, as those who are more aware of these subtler vibrations, these energies that come up that impact us when we're dealing with these internal changes and shifts that's going on. Because a lot of what is going on takes place internally. Even though many would distract themselves with what's going on in the exterior. And the generations, for many generations, we've been conditioned to deal with the exterior. And the exterior takes you away from yourself. The exterior keeps you in the personality, keeps you in the illusion, because this keeps people looking outside of themselves, for themselves, comparing themselves to others, looking outside of themselves for validation and approval and direction, and therefore neglecting their inner guiding star. You see, their inner guiding star. So these things, there's things that come and happen, okay, to take us out of our comfort zone, so to speak, in order for us to get more in tune and more in touch with ourselves. Now, while I'm talking, I'm just getting this high-pitched buzzing through my left ear. And these, if you hear these things, if you do experience this stuff, this is a frequency. This is, now frequency is information. It's coming from a different dimension to this, physical dimension. And you can have these things spontaneous. And I'm just saying that when you do hear these frequencies, these are communication. Yeah, this is communication you're having from a higher plane of existence, you can say, or another plane of existence. Now, the non-physical reality is more real than your physical reality. Given a practical example, we breathe. there is the air, okay, that surrounds us. Now, you cannot see the air and you cannot tangibly grab the air and hold it, okay? But you can feel it, yet you cannot see it, and therefore it exists. This is evidence of what is not perceivable by the five senses still exists, okay? And is also more vital than the things that you can see. Everything from a rock plant to, you know, ourselves and everything else, has an energy aura around it, which is more brighter than the very object that you're observing, depending upon while you rely upon only the five senses. So, which are outer senses, and they're only sense translators. They translate the information, okay, coming from the outside to give you a certain perspective and view of this physical dimension. But it is not the reality of yourself. So we have non-physical existence, all right, interpenetrating the tangible, so to speak, vehicles, um, where we are having our so-called, our physical experiences through. And the thing is that many people, unless they can see, touch, hear, smell, taste something, um, then it doesn't exist, or it's something that's spooky, and there's all of these prejudgments about it based on the conditioning uh, of the unknown, to fear the unknown or what you can't see and all of this type of stuff. But as I said, look at the air. The air is vital, and within the air, we're dealing with the life force. Air is like a medium for the life force energy that flows through, in through, and around all things. But we can consciously take up more of this life force energy. Some call it prana, some call it chi, some call it sekhem, some call it argon, depending which culture or society you're coming from. But it's the same thing. It's the life force energy. And this life force energy is not just like fuel in your car. This life force energy is actually divine consciousness intelligence. This life force energy is intelligence. 90% of our bodily functions is done within the subconscious, the unconscious subconscious mind, okay? So you're not consciously aware of all of the functions and the intelligent operations and directions that are taking place under the hood of your car, you can say, which is very vital and necessary for you to function, okay? For every nanosecond, what says to every day, So this is taking place. And every energy in your body, or your cells, I should say, every cell in your body is operating on energy, okay? And this energy is life force energy. It's more than just the oxygen in the air with all the other components that's there that makes it up. So basically, I've said this to kind of say, look how we are all interacting with a non-physical medium, okay? A non-physical existence of a reality that we all know, exists. We all breathe. We can feel the air, but you cannot tangibly hold the air. You cannot tangibly see the air, okay? When temperature goes down to a certain degree, when it gets cold, and we're dealing with the movement of molecules, atoms, then when something is moving slower, it becomes more visible. This is the reason why you see the mist, the fog, so to speak, when things get colder, when the energy temperature drops and there is slower oscillation, then this is when that which you could not have seen before, when it was when it was vibrating at a higher frequency, now that it's slowed down, it becomes now visible to the senses, your eyes, more to speak. But yet you cannot tangibly grab this air, okay? So I've gone into that because where I'm going to go further is this is important to understand. But now I'm going to go back to this full moon in Aquarius and deal with the sun opposite Leo, okay? And So there is a lot. There is a lot of stuff that has come up over the last month or so, and yeah, a lot of madness, you could say, because madness is something that usually is the term used for what's just crazy and out of control, so to speak, and very destructive. And when you don't understand the why behind the cause of what's happening, the mind kind of it just flaps out. It's limited. It's limited perception and comprehension of what's going on, especially when it's overwhelming, and we're talking about a lot of trauma, emotional, deep suppressed, repressed emotional dynamics um, have been coming up, okay, and being acted out, and more so in a destructive way. But at the same time, it's to push us beyond the limits of what we hold on to as truth and what we consider, our beliefs, okay? And so so what's going on? It's a lot. With this Jupiter retrograde since April, it now goes direct. And Jupiter is also representing, it's like your inner guru, and it's the nature of the soul, okay? And it also represents, because of the sign that it's in, Sagittarius represents your belief systems. So when a planet is in retrograde, it's actually a time to introspect and review the beliefs you hold, because the structure of society and the structure of many people's lives on an individual level is going through a real big change, okay? A lot of things structures are actually breaking down, okay? So when you're dealing with Saturn and Capricorn, Capricorn represents actually the structure of society. Capricorn, is more about linear and logical, the way we do things in a linear, straight line, logical way. It needs to do things in that way in order to establish structure, you can say, that one needs to use to exist, all right, for something to have order to it, okay? But you can have a structure that no longer works, and you can have a certain logic and a certain way of thinking, the way your consciousness is structured, you can say, based on your beliefs. And Sagittarius is the sign dealing with beliefs, also dealing with higher truth, and the expansion of consciousness, but it also can represent the beliefs, the man-made beliefs, the limited beliefs, the conditioned beliefs that we hold, which then become how we structure our reality based upon what we believe to be true. And those beliefs, as we grow, can become very limiting to the reality we want to create, you see? And a lot of people, most people still are not privy, or when I say privy to, maybe still don't know how to relate to this type of information, because, what do you mean I create my reality? All of this stuff is happening outside of me. Is what others are doing, And yes, but it's also, yeah, but that's coming also from within those other people. You see what I mean? And so the structure of reality is what's going under a big deconstruction at the moment, okay? So therefore, Jupiter representing that in its own sign, it's made a return to its own sign, Sagittarius, while it has been in retrograde from April to, it's going to fully go direct by the 15th of August, when we have this full moon in Aquarius. It's where, we are holding on to, we have to ask ourselves, it's challenging the beliefs we hold. And usually we hold on to beliefs based upon the values we entertain. Okay. For example, if somebody is more on a political into the political stuff, and they're more about capitalism or something, and they are benefiting from that level of capitalism for themselves, but it's not necessarily what is um, resonant or helpful for all, then they're not going to be very happy with anything changing in that department for themselves, because their structure of reality that agrees on such a capitalistic view or approach wouldn't want things to change. It's going good for me. I don't really care about those it's not going good for. And so therefore, they would feel a challenge if they were to be discussing their beliefs around, political structures, which would differ to somebody else's belief, okay, that they hold around these things, politics, okay? Many of us would use the term politics to say, you mean polytricks. Poly is a word that means many, okay? And ticks, is the antics of the many so-called political parties. But there's a lot of tricks, a lot of cons. I mean, many people keep voting, even though after they vote, it's the same thing that happens. Nothing but their hopes. I'll use the word hope, yeah, that they are hoping various presidents or politicians to bring forth for them, and the changes for their benefit usually doesn't happen. Things just seem to get worse. Yet they will still vote. You see what I mean? So people can be locked into various beliefs, various ideas that don't even work for them. And we wait for outside to change before we can change. When the thing is, it's like all change starts from within, okay? And this is why now when we're dealing with these, back to the astrology or the cosmic clock, okay? Why various things are activated, triggered at particular times, okay? And last Tuesday, I had Brother Galactic Clyde on the show, and he was giving a good breakdown about the new galactic year that we have entered into, which begins at the 26th of July. It's a 13-year cycle. So there's so many cycles within cycles that are simultaneously operating, and within cycles, okay? So there's cycles within cycles that's simultaneously operating, and at the same time. So we got this galactic year that has just been completed, what you call the end of a particular galactic year. So what happens here is that we're in a new beginning, okay, of a new 13-year cycle on a galactic level. A lot of us just keep focusing on such a terrestrial level that, look, you got many people who walk all day for months, and seldomly do they look up to the sky to realize there is more in existence, even in your physical experience, than the ground, okay? Many people don't even stop to just, elevate their eyes upwards to realize, wow, you got a sky, you got a broader, expansive space and another dimension right within your physical dimension we're having our physical experiences in. And they don't even pay attention to it, because they're so fixated on the concretized mentality, the concrete concepts. Hence, we're living in a concrete jungle, more or less, because it covers up the natural configuration of things, nature and so forth. But anyway, it's a case where there's a lot of emotional dynamics coming to the fore, and they come up in order for it to become for you to consciously become aware of it, because we seldomly pay any attention to what's in our basement. The basement which is the unconscious subconscious. Okay? And therefore, there's a lot of things hidden there that are not no longer serving us. And as long as you're unconscious or you are repressing what's being suppressed already, um, these are going to be energies that are still cannot be, they're not going anywhere. It's just that those energies build up and get more intense until, you know, they explode. You know, they have to find an outlet somehow. You see what I mean? And more times when things are so suppressed and repressed and they eventually actually explode, come out, you know, when it does come out and express itself, it can come out in a very destructive way. You see? So so last Tuesday I was talking about the Lion's Gate and the new moon we had in Leo. And Leo is an archetype within ourselves, which is related to the heart and being true to your heart, and to acknowledge your own unique inner light, or the light within you. You see what I mean? Where you go within, find your strength and confidence to creatively self-actualize yourself in the most positive, creative way. Okay? But again, like all signs and like all things you see on the physical plane, there's a shadow side, there's a flip side, you know? And that's when we are caught up on the exterior and we are looking for that light outside of ourselves. We're looking for that validation external to us in the exterior. When people look to seek to understand their, you know, their self-worth, you know, that's usually equated or measured by some exterior comparison. All right. And those comparing yourself to something external to you leaves you in so much of you know, you can say event, you know, you feel cool, for now, but then something comes along later and you're no longer feeling so grand in yourself, because things on the exterior change, people change. If you're depending upon your self-worth to be validated by that which is outside of you, people's thoughts change, people going through different things, people think differently based on whatever they could be going through in the moment or at that moment. So this is not, you can see why to seek validation or who you are on the external can end up, it leaves people feeling very dissatisfied or envious of other people, you know, especially because envy comes from comparison, you know, looking outside of yourself, thinking, oh, look at that person. Oh, they look so this, or they look so that, or, you know, are they better than me? You know, or even sometimes with Leo, you know, I'm better than them, you know, this idea of comparing oneself. When the fact is, it doesn't make sense comparing yourself to no one, because we're all unique individuals, you see. But when you're dealing with a society that has conformed people to a consensus, to believe in, you know, some group think thing, then what happens here is you cannot, you know, there's a fear to even express your own unique individuality. Oh, breaking away from the herd makes you looked upon as something strange, you know, based by those who are just into the program. I mentioned last Tuesday how a lot of these zombie movies, you know, why they make all these zombie movies, and some people are really into it. Well, the zombies actually represent the general public. A lot of people are just, you know, what one terms as being dead is when one has not woken up to the true light of their being yet, their soul, the timeless reality and nature of whom they really are and why they're here for. Because you come in here actually to beautify and further creation. But when you're getting caught up under the indoctrinations of believing other people's definitions that they give you, calling you human and calling you black, Chinese, white, Indian, Japanese, whatever. These become like clamps and force constructs that one is trying to be themselves within when it's not themselves, especially when you depend upon others to define you when you are conforming to those ideas. So what happens is that it creates a lot of dissatisfaction. Plus, let me add here, also with the emotional dynamics that come up to be brought to your conscious awareness. They come up with anger, the wounds, the trauma, you see. It also relates and correlates to ancestral stuff. A lot of people talk about, you get a lot of people talk about their ancestors, our ancestors, and honoring their ancestors in the sense that they'd even give more, they'd start to give homage to their ancestors first before the source of their being, okay? The source of all being, okay? But you have this idea about ancestors and that we're here to further our ancestors' stuff, or what you can say is, you're holding onto ancestral trauma, and we're here to work out our ancestral things. Now, I use the word trauma. A lot of our emotional dynamics that come up, that has been suppressed, that come up, is the stuff coming from your ancestors. The way what's been passed on to you based on the beliefs, okay? And beliefs fall into thoughts. Belief turns into emotions and thoughts, okay? So you feel a particular way based on what you believe. And you can believe things that are not in alignment with the cosmic truth of you. They're not in alignment with the universal divine order of harmony, love, beauty, goodness, joy, all of the, all of the healthy and wondrous prosperity and wealth that life itself, the nature of life itself, offers and gives and brings, okay? So what happens is that because of the beliefs we carry, many people believe in a separation from their source of being. So this separation creates a lot of trauma. Going back to the thing with the moon and Cancer, we're dealing with emotional security and the emotional attachments that we have based upon our early, from 0 to 7, as I said, early emotional impressions that we have received in our subconscious. That becomes the script for your personal sense of identity, your personal self-image, who you believe is this role you play out is being governed by your subconscious script. So also, because I use the term ancestral, we're talking about what we've inherited from those who were before us. And you come through a particular lineage where you're now carrying all of that ancestral stuff, okay? And not all of your ancestral stuff or your ancestral beliefs are in alignment with all of that goodness, yeah? It is based on trauma. It's based upon the erroneous beliefs, man-made doctrines, religious theologian, total misinformation, misinterpretation of what is called the Bible, which means book, or Talmud, Torah, Quran, whatever religious persuasion you are at. And these things are distortions because your soul doesn't have a religion. Your soul doesn't have an earthly race in the sense that, oh, you're African or you're English or you're Chinese or you're Venezuelan or Sri Lankan, and Your soul don't have those identities. These are man-made stuff. So what these limited beliefs do, they limit you. They limit you from expanding your consciousness beyond the boundaries and confines of your conditioning. Okay? So um, I've just got a message in here, so I'm just replying. Um, so so I'm laying this down here. I'm laying all of this down before I go into this full moon in Aquarius, because I'm talking about the energies that are being triggered off, the inner shifts, the internal shifts taking place. How when you feel your beliefs are being challenged, or when your emotional dynamics start coming up, that has been suppressed, that which you are have been unconscious of, that exists within the basement of your apartment, okay, of your building, yeah, your temple, and within the basement of you can say the deeper awareness of yourself that you're not conscious of. These dynamics are coming up, these traumas, these these displaced emotions, and the anger and the pain and the accusations and the you're chucking it out there, and it becomes a lot of destructive energy, okay? And then you have people believing that, man is so wicked. Look at the things we just, man just war. When I say man, I'm referring to man and woman, yeah, because I'm not into this, you know, blame one side or make one side responsible only, and the other side is just scot-free. They haven't contributed to anything of what's been experienced. I'm not gonna go on that line. When I say man, I'm referring to man and woman, because both of them got man in there. Both of those words have man in there. Okay, so so um, so there is this idea about the destructivity of man. But these are all based upon the forced beliefs man chooses to hold on to. And these enforced indoctrinations that have been held within the unconscious, subconscious through various lifetimes. Because you're not just dealing with this incarnation. An incarnation is just saying in the flesh. Okay? So you're not just dealing with memories of this of this present life experience. You're dealing with memories held in the soul on the unconscious, subconscious level that stem from prior lifetimes. This is why it's so important when you hear the term know thyself and to thy own self be true. Why is it so important to know thyself? And why is knowing yourself not just simply who you look at and identify within a mirror? Because if that was it, well, gosh, everything would be, hey, you need, you wouldn't even need to have that statement or that term presented. So obviously there is a self other than what we see in the mirror that we're saying we're using the word I am to. And maybe I'll do a show on I am, actually, because, I am, huh? You are the I. That's the isness of you, and the am is the existence or being. Some would say, I am not I am the I. Well, you can say I am I. Now that's dealing with your intrinsic true identity. However, what you add to I am, usually people go, I am this, I am that. If that's not aligned with the cosmic truth of you, you will experience yourself as that other than yourself, which is why it's very important to know thyself. Know thy soul self. Know the knowledge of your soul, your spiritual being, you see? That, as I said, transcends your physical vehicle and transcends time and space. And your soul comes in here to mature further, to grow and expand further, to open up and unfold, just like how you see how plants, flowers, grow from a certain seed. And in the seed is consciousness knowledge. Your soul has within itself all of what it knows, yeah, what it needs to be itself. Like a tree, an acorn seed, or or a mustard seed, and you hear that term, mustard seed, in the scriptures. If you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you could say to the mountain, move, and it will move. That's a misinterpretation, because how can you equate faith or trust to a size? You see what I mean? Oh, people will say, oh, maybe I didn't have enough faith, or I didn't have enough, which is really conviction, whatever you're having conviction in, you see? But you can't equate that to size, you see? So what the term of the mustard seed is, and what I'm using that as well as an acorn seed for a tree to use to explain here is that you're talking about the nature of a seed is conscious knowledge. So it contains within itself the knowledge of its own identity, which is intrinsic. It's not something that is outside of itself. Example, a mustard seed or an acorn seed doesn't ask a daffodil or a giraffe, or doesn't ask you and me how to grow. An acorn doesn't ask you or me how to grow into an acorn tree, okay? A mustard seed doesn't ask anything outside of itself, especially us, how to grow into a mustard seed. The reason for that is that inside the seed is already the knowledge, consciousness knowledge of its own identity. And having conviction in its own identity, the mustard seed or the acorn seed is able to grow bark, wood, all of the things that it needs in order to develop fully into what it is. So really, faith and that equation to the mustard seed is really talking about your conviction in your intrinsic identity, okay? So if you have as much faith as a mustard seed has in its own identity, you will what? Be able to accomplish whatever it is you intend or wish yourself to become. You see what I mean? So with us, we don't have a limit apart from the limiting beliefs we carry. So with the and I say here, with the so with this with these planetary activations and it's triggering and bringing up what you can say the dregs, yeah, all the dregs, all of that which is, we're holding in ourselves on the emotional level in the subconscious. These emotions have to come out to be released from us. They have to be purged from our hearts. The heart and the subconscious or the unconscious subconscious is the same thing. And that's why you hear this term, as one thinks within their heart, so shall they become. But the heart here we're referring to is the deeper awareness, your subconscious, which is also the unconscious, okay? A lot of things people carry in their heart needs to actually be purged because it's a lot of trauma. Rather than love being in there, which is what the heart is to be filled with, which starts with the love for ourselves, the heart carries a lot of pain, okay? Judgment, past trauma, past circumstances. And some of these things are also what we've actually been the cause of in previous incarnations, okay? And what we're holding on to, as well as ancestral stuff through the lineage we've come through. So when we talk about ancestors and holding on, respect the ancestors, a lot of that keeps you stuck in trauma. Now, when it comes to you as the individual, who is a culmination of all of those who came before you, for why your soul chose to come through that particular line in this incarnation, it is for you to be the one that makes the decision that the buck stops here. All of that trauma, all of those erroneous beliefs, all of those painful past And we're talking about the past. We're not talking about now. But if you're holding on to those states from the past, you perpetuate them in your now. Okay? So a lot of folk is carrying ancestral stuff and haven't come to this awareness of their own individual power. Okay? So they continue the perpetuation of further um, drama. Okay? And why I say the buck stops with you, the individual, is that it's the individual in the now who has the power to transform all of that which has gone before them by deciding, hey, I don't really want to carry no more pain and trauma, which is coming from the erroneous beliefs and how I'm identifying with myself. Okay? I choose joy. I choose happiness. I choose healing. I choose health. I mean, some people carry over um, illnesses, conditions, congenital diseases based upon their beliefs being aligned with the same kind of beliefs and emotional states of those before them. And they continue thinking to feel the same way through what they believe or hold on to as truth. Okay? So therefore, they continue the same stuff. And you're not here to do that. You're here to heal yourself. And through healing yourself, you'll heal your entire ancestral line. Because they want liberation, you can say, from all of that stuff that's gone before. Their mistakes, their erroneousness. You come in here as a child to become better than those who were before you, not to fall into the same mode of operation, which obviously through looking back at the past, you have to ask yourself, so hang on a minute, what's the result of all of those previous, those beliefs held on to from the past? So what's happening is when we get the cosmic clock activation, all right, as what we call in astrology and all of that, um, um, it's like we have an opportunity, okay, to become more aware of what we were unaware of or unconscious of that has been residing there within us in the basement of our temple, all right? And for the purpose of transforming, which means to move beyond those thought forms, those old thought forms that perpetuate the same conditions. So there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of trauma, a lot of anger, a lot of hatred. Come on, yeah? And for some folk, it becomes their identity. And what we are experiencing with, back to this, the meaning of like the Jupiter dealing with your belief system, now that it's going direct, it's like there is, after a retrograde, it's like after all of that introspection, when it goes direct, it's like after all of that introspection, you yourself can be emerging with maybe a different view, a broader view, in order to be able to exist, you can then say, in this world in a different way, rather than believing you have to stay grabbing on to holding on to what does no longer serves you. There's internal shifts taking place, changes in the context of our values, which are usually behind the challenge people experience through the beliefs they carry, as if to say it's the absolute truth, when it's actually it's an aspect of what they're holding as true. You can't even trust what you're getting told as history in the narrative that we have being given. All of that is distortion, and all of that can add to your erroneous beliefs and perpetuate the same distortion. So we're in a time where you have to go within yourself and connect with, your soul. Now, with Jupiter going direct, we also have Uranus. Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. It's more about cosmic intelligence. And Uranus governs the sign Aquarius. So Uranus is about also freedom and sudden change, because it's about liberation from, you know, outworn structures or ideas that holds the soul back from its further growth and expansion and maturity, you see? So Taurus is about survival or our values in the sense of how we relate to ourselves. But what happens is that when we're caught up in a society where the values are based on survival, and if I don't have those things that I need, I'm not going to be able to survive. And those values are based upon the beliefs, okay, man-made beliefs that kind of make people hold on to values which isn't really true for them. It's based on holding many people into a lower vibration of fear and survival. Because survival is about fear, Oh my gosh, what's going to happen, If I don't have this, if I don't have that, And Taurus, as well as Scorpio, is associated with money. And money is something that has been very, very much associated with the survival, the means to survive in a society that in order for you even just to have, physical sustenance, food and stuff, if you don't have money, then you have a society that would even deprive you of what is actually rightfully yours. You know what I mean? All of us, you see, because when you're dealing with man-made beliefs and religion, it is contrary to natural laws, which reflect universal truth. And natural law is the basis of what the soul uses to determine what's true or not for itself. You see, what's real or what's false for itself. But as long as one is holding on to the man-made beliefs and unnatural ideas and values, then they're motivated by survival. And so now when we're dealing with Uranus is now going to go retrograde. Uranus went retrograde the same day, 11th of August, that Jupiter went direct. So as I said, what Uranus represents, represents freedom, liberation. It's also electric and represents the higher or cosmic intelligence, you see, which wants to break out from the constriction to see the more broader picture. And it's the unconscious, right? It's the unconscious, subconscious of our own soul. Yeah? Which wants liberation and wants to heal from the trauma, okay? The emotional trauma that comes up or has been caused when one has attempted to walk their own path in a society or culture that shuns that, because more times societies and culture want you to conform to what they subscribe for you, right? Or prescribe, I should say, prescribe for you. And that is not necessarily taking your authentic self into consideration, okay? So a lot of things, so now we got this full moon where the moon is going to be at 22 degrees Aquarius. And Aquarius is about freedom, individualization of one's unique, one's own unique individual expression of source, right? Of, you could say God, but we're talking about the universal source of being, okay? So each one of us, like a drop from an ocean, is an expression of that ocean and its nature, okay? But when you're not in attunement with your soul and you're caught up with man-made mind control, the beliefs you harbor inside of yourself, which imprints into the subconscious, creates this destructive tendency or this feeling of not being enough, meaning you're not feeling you're whole. because of this separation and believing that source is outside of you. And so so you got the moon, which is your emotional, unconscious, emotional um, body, your unconscious emotional state, or the emotional dynamics that have been suppressed in your subconscious. Okay, and you have this opposition, the sun opposite the moon, the sun in Leo, and I said Leo's the heart. And there's a lot of fire in the chest. There's a lot of, because Leo is fire, and it's a fixed sign. Aquarius is a fixed sign. Taurus is a fixed sign. Scorpio is a fixed sign. So with these internal changes coming up, there can also be a resistance to that change. You see, there can also be a resistance to that change. So so yeah, let me say this: the greatest humility, because everything's being flipped back to front. The egoic personality, the me, believes that you must be humble in order to show humility um, in the eyes of others. Okay? But what is humility? And I'm going to give you a view or an idea on humility that you may or may not have heard before. The greatest humility is to come to understand that you are one with the universal source of being, which from a religious perspective has been termed God, and to accept your oneness with the universal source of being, or God. And the greatest arrogance you could ever have, or the greatest arrogance, or to have the greatest arrogance, which is, usually people, oh, that's easy, they're egotistical. Yeah, the greatest arrogance that you could ever have is to have the nerve to think that you could be possibly something other than one with the universal source, that you are something other than one or part of the universal source of all existence. Yeah, which in itself would be, how could you be? Really, how could you be separate and apart from the universal source of all existence? Okay, and with what would you end up be referring to use to validate such a claim? You see, so that's arrogance. That is the biggest arrogance. That is the ego me, thinking, oh, we're just a little speck of dust, we're insignificant. You hear a lot of folk from the Western, people believe that stuff because they buy into this original sin, which is a man-made concept. It's not the origin of you at all. Okay, so if you have this idea that you are somehow other than all that is, you are separate from all that is, you are and it's somehow outside of you, so far away, them type of beliefs. Okay, and you hold on to that, and you would be maybe fighting someone down, or contesting someone else who is accepting their oneness with the universal source of all being, and you think, oh my gosh, who do you think you are? Huh? That individual who may be thinking, the person who's accepting, acknowledging their oneness with the universal source of all that is, all right, and accepting that as arrogant, as egotistical, then something's, that's just totally, hang on a minute, that's distortion, all right? And there's many folk who don't want you to acknowledge this, thinking, oh, who do you think you are? We're only just humans. You see that idea of human, dirt, soil, just identifying with the earthly vehicle? That is what's going to make you believe you're separate from all that is, and you're not deserving of all the goodness all that is desires for you, because you contain all of that nature within you. This is why we're really here, to beautify creation, further creation. You understand? When we're talking about heaven on earth, yeah? Well, heaven is within you, as the soul, the realm of your soul, the dimension your soul comes from, and you're here to beautify your life. We're not here to be killing and being destructive and, disastrous to one another, or buying into other people's programs that support their desires for people to destroy themselves, you know, buying into that loveless idea. Hmm? Someone else has defined you by telling you, giving you all these labels and where you come from and all of that type of stuff. You know, all of that ain't who you are. That's why you have to seek inward to know your intrinsic identity. So I say all of this and how it pertains to the cosmic clock, the transits we're having, what it's bringing up. The full moon in Aquarius is about, well, you're emotionally, you want to be you. You want to be your unique self. You got the sun in Leo, which is about your individual, unique inner light and your creative self-actualization. Your power to creatively self realize, actualize, bring about, you know what I mean? Through your creative power and ability to express your unique, authentic self, your divine royalty, you can say, because Leo is also related to royalty. And that resides, Leo is somewhere in your chart. So it doesn't mean that if you are not, your sun is not in Leo, it doesn't mean you don't have that divine spark within you, that royal spark, which, you've drawn out, which you carry within yourself, that's been drawn out from the source of all existence. Yeah, we all have a greatness within ourselves, and to individuate that greatness so we're not walking around as robots, but able to acknowledge, realize, and express our own unique individuality, okay? And contribute to the whole, right? Through giving our best, yeah? The best of ourselves. So you remain this unique individual that's also contributing to the greater picture than man-made societal and cultural, at many times limiting traditions that folk hold on to. Because this emotional security is really representing where we're insecure, okay? Because the emotional attachments to the external things we use to identify with, to derive a sense of emotional security from, those things external to us, all of those things can be taken away from you. People can change, people can make transitions and pass on to another dimension. People can have different things, internal changes of their own going on, which makes them may have to move away from you, Places change, things can break or be lost. So when we are attached, make our emotional security attached to these external things, then the fear of losing those things, fear comes up when you're anticipating loss, okay? Losing something being taken from you. And then what it kicks in is the survival, yeah? And those values that have been derived from those beliefs, those survival beliefs, these unnatural beliefs, these man-made religious beliefs, you see? Then fear kicks in whenever those, you feel like, oh my gosh, based on what you believe is being threatened, your values, what you value, what you feel is intrinsic, essential for your survival, when they're being challenged, then people can operate from a fear-based survival reaction, okay? Out of the fear of loss or being terminated. You know what I mean? This idea of the end. When actually what's happening now is that as beliefs are going to be reviewed, so is your values that those beliefs are attached to, So they're going under a review. And that's Uranus going retrograde now in Taurus. And Taurus is ruled by Venus, which is in Leo. Leo squares Taurus. So what's happening here is, where are your values and how do you relate to yourself? Where is it coming from? Now, Taurus sextiles, right, means it makes a 60-degree angle to Pisces and also a 60-degree angle to Cancer. So those angles, you can say, are aspects or the way a planet is communicating with a sign and another planet, you see what I mean? That it's having those kind of angles to, or relationship with, yeah, how it's relating to and communicating with this other planet or the sign that that planet's in, okay? So Pisces is about really the source, okay? And Cancer is about emotional security, right? So what is going to be happening here is that as one's beliefs start going through a change in order for one to think a bit more deeper, to open up and expand their awareness, to see things in a more broader viewpoint, so they can be more mature, okay? They can be more functional in a broader sense, yeah? In the society that you're living in, based upon your allowing yourself to expand your consciousness, to have more of a broader view rather than to hold on to what you consider as the total truth for you, for you to remain stuck within a tight jacket, you know, you will begin to grow, isn't it? And you will actually perceive yourself and things in a different way rather than the cooped up way that one felt challenged and based on fear, you know what I mean, of how am I going to survive if I don't, you know, if you know, based on what you're believing to be true, the limitation of it, how you know, it's going, how are you going to function, basically? This fear, you're going to have to expand your view and realize that, well, what you're holding on to is not necessarily the total truth, okay? So your values now are going to have to come from you connecting with source. And your security, emotional security, is going to have to also come from you realizing that you have to internalize this emotional security. The way you feel about yourself is coming from the beliefs you hold. And a lot of us have erroneous beliefs we carry about ourselves based upon what we have absorbed from others and buying into other people's strengths and priorities and values, which are not intrinsic or in alignment with our own soul's worth and value. You see, our self-worth has to come from within ourselves through realizing that you are enough. You are deserving of all the goodness that you desire in life, because that is your birthright. That is your inheritance. Yeah? When you align with the source, you hear this term, I and the Father. You may have heard this term. I and my Father are one. I and the Father are one. Father is synonymous, or it represents your spiritual origin and source. Okay, not a personality from an earthly perspective of your father, you know, or your mother, you know, earthly. Yeah. You've been taught to, you may have heard the term your heavenly Father. Well, that's about you going within yourself. As they say, the kingdom of heaven is within you. That's about you going within yourself to connect with your spiritual source and origin, okay? Whose nature is all goodness. Hence, you got the term God, which has is less of one O, short to good. And then they say, oh, God is good. God is good. Well, really, you're talking about goodness. And when you're talking about God, you're really chatting about the source of all goodness. And when you're chatting about, when people talk about devil and Satan, well, devil means adversary to the goodness. So if you are thinking thoughts that's adversary to the goodness inherent and intrinsic within yourself, then you create an opposition to you. And you create situations, we create situations that then manifest on the external environmental mirror as enemies or those who oppose your good, or you feel that, oh, something's holding back my, what I want from me. You know, this is what it does, because many of us don't realize, most people don't realize how you are the creator. Your consciousness is the creator. You see? So as one thinks, to then for that thought to go into the subjective level of one's subconscious, and you begin to feel that way about yourself, then so you shall become. You see? That's what's going to get then now projected onto the outer environmental screen. Yeah? I said a few shows ago that, what we think in secret comes to pass, because the environment is but our looking glass. So basically, what we're thinking in secret within ourselves comes to pass in the environment that now reflects back to us through our physical experience, that becomes what we call our personal reality, back to us. You see? Um, so, so with this full moon, it's gonna be also coming to a point of a culmination, like a resolution, coming to a realization, a fulfillment of an idea, okay, or getting clarity, of a point of that which was taking place from the solar, okay, eclipse in Cancer. When we're dealing with solar eclipses, you're dealing with amplification of whatever sign that solar eclipse is taking place in. So because that was in Cancer, it was about your emotional body. It's about the emotional dynamics, the trauma, the shadow, all of the stuff associated to security, emotional security, that and where we never felt we were emotionally nurtured and loved, for example, or what we think isn't right, and fear based upon, we're looking out there for someone to owe us something, in a sense. And you're a big 32-year-old or in your 40s and something, and you're coming off with a lot of this 13-year-old little, stuff that you're blaming when it's your stuff. It's your stuff coming up. We all have our own stuff that we're unaware of. As I said, seldom do many sit still and explore the basement of their temple. Yeah, what's residing in their unconscious, subconscious, in their heart. Yeah, at that deeper level, when we're talking about suppressed or repressed energies. So this full moon, when you got a full moon, you're dealing with an opposition. The moon is opposite the sun. So there can be some struggle. Yeah. I want to be who I am. I want to shine my light. And then there's the emotional side of it, where it's like, what's holding you back? What holds us back is the emotional attachments and, the wounds or trauma that we may be still carrying. And when I say trauma and wounds, they can also come from being ridiculed, judged, and criticized, when you're trying to be true to yourself and not conform to an idea that others have of you, or what a society wants to keep you stuck in. This is the reason why, as I said, Aquarius is about breaking away and rebelling, liberating oneself from these forced constructions, okay? These forced constructs, this forced way of being and living. And more time, a lot of people ain't even about being, they're just about doing. You will hear someone, people, yo, how you doing, man? Or how's things? How's things? How's things? Yeah? How you doing? What are you doing? How's things going? Going. And seldom is it about how are you being. And usually when you're chatting about being, you usually have well-being, isn't it? Not well-doing. But more time, it's all about what you do. So people define folk from what they do, or or men are defined as a man based on what they're doing. Yeah. Um, again, a conditioning. Women are conditioned to define men based on what they do. Has he got a job? Does he drive a car? You know, what does he do and what does he have? Yeah. And basically, if you're, you know, if you're defining someone based on what they do, and you feel that what they're doing doesn't meet up to what you want them to be doing, then what do? You sack them and get somebody else, to do what you would want that man to do, and he can also and woman to do. Okay, but it's this doing point I'm making. This doing, and it's like, gosh, what about being? Because being now is how you're feeling. Being is now your state of being. Yeah. Do you feel good or do you feel bad? Yeah. See this duality on this plane. So you can talk to people and ask them, yo, how's things, man? How are you? Oh, not too bad, they'll say. Not too bad. Not too bad. So that's like, you're bad, but not too bad. But you're bad, though. You see what I'm saying? And we don't see how these little words that we keep repeating is conditioning or keeping us in a certain condition on a subconscious level to where we're not feeling the goodness, the intrinsic goodness of our own beingness. You see? Because it's from out of being that doing becomes, because you get motivated from the way you feel, your being, the state that you're in, to now do something you're feeling inspired to do from your being. You see how your being, well-being. Many of us are caught up in doing, and I'm not saying anything's wrong with doing in the sense that, of course, it takes action to bring certain things into visible actualization, or to make things realized, that you can say, yo, look, I've just expressed that, look at that, of course there's that process, but it begins from being, and most of us ain't dealing with the being. It's just about doing, and the word doing, and when you're children, you'd even have the term for defecation to be doo-doo. So you get some folk, they're just doing so much doing till it just holy for diarrhea, holy for this crap, a lot of crap, is just shoveling a lot of crap, doing a lot of stuff, shoveling crap, while their being, their state, their health, their way they feel about themselves is being neglected. Or how they're feeling about themselves is based upon these erroneous beliefs that keep them feeling bad. And for them to feel good is dependent upon something external that has to happen, rather than, before they can feel better. Feel better. More times, rather than feeling better, feeling good, people are trying to outdo others by doing something better than somebody else, in order to think, well, that will measure them up to get the validation as being better than someone else they're comparing themselves to. I mean, do you see how this psychology keeps people in just stuck, you see, in what is not, rather than connecting to what is, which is the I within the isness of their being. So let me just read over some notes I took down, if I can make this. So the full moon in August is happening on the 15th, all right? And we're going to have a new moon. Look at it. We're having a full moon, okay, in Aquarius on Thursday. And we had a new moon, okay, in Leo, the opposite sign, last strong. And then on the 30th, the end of this month, we're going to have another new moon in Leo. So that's an indicator, all right, that, you're having two new moons in the same sign, and you're having two full moons in the same sign too, Aquarius. So let me just recap on some stuff. Jupiter has been retrograding since April, and now it went direct on the 11th of August. All right, 2 days ago. Yeah, into December. It's going to continue going direct till in December. And we've had Uranus, which is in Taurus, that went retrograde. Okay, retrograde is going backwards. Okay, just like we've come out of a Mercury retrograde that started to go retrograde at around, I don't know, between trying to remember, 3 and 6 degrees Leo, and went back to 23 degrees Cancer. And now it's going direct again through the shadow. It already went backwards on. So we're still within the Mercury shadow of the retrograde. So until it reaches back to 6 degrees, that's when we're fully out of the Mercury retrograde and its shadow. You see what I mean? And your thoughts now are going to be able to kind of get a little bit more clearer. But there is going to be a change through all of that introspective time, the emotional dynamics that came up during the time of throughout July and so forth, through this transit going through Cancer and the solar eclipse we had, which brought up all of the shadow and the emotional dynamics based on the suppressed and repressed energy in the unconscious, subconscious to come up, to be cleared out. So you can be more fully illuminated. Because as I also said, as going back to ancestral stuff, some of that stuff is what you need to get rid of, clear out by making the decision that the buck stops here. I choose to expand my consciousness into the direction of my soul so I can align with the inner gold of myself, which is also, you can say, is Leo as well, going inside for the inner gold, the gold, okay? The gold, right? It's not out there. It's the inner gold within yourself, within ourselves, So Uranus is in Taurus, going retrograde. It's gone retrograde now, since the 11th of August. So basically, because of world crisis, you have this, the world crisis where the collective, the energies of the collective, if you're very sentient, you're going to feel all of that. Because the more awareness you have, the more you're going to be aware of. You're going to be more aware of the subtle energies and sensations moving through your body. And sometimes what happens is that we mistake what's going on in the collective for what we individually are actually feeling, when that's not necessarily the case, or it doesn't have to be the case. If you're feeling something that you're wondering, oh, I'm sensing, you're sensing some sensations or emotions coming up, first thing you should do before you start acting on that is ask yourself this question: is this mine? Or is this what I'm picking up from the collective? Because everybody's putting out their energy. You see what I mean? And if you're on a similar wavelength, then it's just going to amplify whatever vibration you're on, if you're on a similar one towards the collective. But as an individual, you can choose, you see? But that takes awareness to make such choices of what vibration, how you choose to feel in any moment. So through the world crisis, the stuff going on in the social media, it's causing a lot of emotional trauma to come to the surface, and how we process our reality at the moment or in the moment. So how we're processing our reality is going to come up based on the beliefs we carry and the values we hold on to. Yeah. So all of that is coming up to be rearranged if we're not fighting it or allowing fear to take over. So then we're dealing with the structure of how we gather information, and then as you're examining that examination takes place through the retrogrades. Okay, it's going backwards, going inward to oneself. So while we've had Jupiter retrograding through Sagittarius, its home sign, from April to the 11th of August. It's like, there could have been an examination of that, looking at the structure and how the structure of the way we think and how we gather information. And then with the direct with the with Jupiter going direct now, one can also come out with like a freshness, kind of a certain freshness in perspective after the planet comes out of retrograde. So there could be a freshness coming up in one's views, their beliefs, what you're holding as true. Um, you're able to actually, review things and think of more deeper beyond the perspective you've had before. So there could be a freshness in your point of view emerging or embodying a fresher point of view. You see what I mean? Now that Jupiter's going direct. So, after you've come out from this inwardness, out of this deep introspection, that's, you could be experience you're being experiencing during this retrograde, and finding deeper meaning, deeper meaning of the solar eclipse, as I just said, that took place in Cancer, okay, which activated all this dynamic emotional stuff that came up. And then, as I said, Taurus, which, where Uranus, which is the high octave of Mercury, has been residing. This is relating to your value system, and that's going to go through a review, right? So, yeah, how we've been instigating, how we've been dealing with the so-called truths and we're perceiving, and what we think is absolute truth, and what is actually fueling, you can say, fueling our need to hold on to those truths. We have derived certain contents of value from. Okay, so there's a lot of internal shifts and changes, all right, in context of value that's gonna occur, okay, or that is occurring. Yeah, for those who are relating and can resonate with what I'm saying. The nature of survival is coming up more, but you see, because of this Uranus retrograde that's going to be going on now, and these can be causing ones to get caught up in the lower frequencies of survival. Okay, so so Jupiter is also dealing with wisdom, right? Truth and honesty, and as I said, it pertains to the nature of your soul wherever Jupiter lands in your chart. So Jupiter is about reorganizing the context of truth. Yeah, reorganizing the context of how you're perceiving truth, or what you're perceiving as truth for you. And that is, based on the way we feel and what we wish we want to construct in our lives, what we want to construct in our lives. There's a reorganizing, I'm trying to get my words out, reorganizing of the context of that truth, what it is that we feel we want to construct in our lives. And that situation there, while Jupiter's going direct, we have to remember that Saturn is in Capricorn and Pluto's in Capricorn. And Saturn, so there's going to be a little bit of a struggle there, right? Because Saturn is all about, logic and linear, and to do things in a way that one needs to have things, to establish. You have to think in a linear, logical way in order to establish a structure that, in order for you to exist in society, something that brings a sense of order, okay? But those old structures are not necessarily going to accommodate this more expanded view, okay? As you're beginning to reorganize what you're perceiving as truth now for you, as these internal changes take place in your consciousness through the emotional dynamics that have come up. So, what else? Yeah, and with the Sun, the Mars, and Venus, that's all in Leo at the moment. That had been from the 6th or the 7th of August to Thursday, the 15th. those planets, the Sun, Mars, Venus, have been squaring Uranus in Taurus. This is the reason why there's a challenge now coming up to do with your values and this feeling of survival, okay? As various truths get, so-called truths, personal truths get challenged, okay? So it's representing the deeper underlying psychological state of our awareness. And for most of us, many people don't really access go, or I should say, penetrate the deeper subconscious. Okay, you don't hang out in that. So there's a lot of stuff that is not, you're not consciously aware of, but it's coming up. Okay, or has come up. And because it's the place where we've been holding onto most of our, unprocessed emotional stuff. Okay, and the thing is, your physical body, Taurus now, your physical body, yeah, is a conduit for where we process our unresolved emotional dynamics. Where we're processing our suppressed or repressed emotional stuff. So the body is a conduit for that processing. And this is why you need to get in touch with your body. You need to get in touch with how are you feeling within, and how are you existing within your own body? Because your body is like your house, okay? Or it's your temple. Your body's your temple, man. And it's through the body that we access what's going on in our subconscious based upon being aware of the sensations coming up in us. Because your subconscious operates your body, all right? It works with your physical temple, your physical vehicle. Your subconscious is controlling 90 to 95% of all your bodily functions. Okay, so your subconscious is intimately related to your body or connected to your body. Okay, so these things that I'm just saying here, so is bringing up challenges to our values, as I said, related to our truths, and the opportunity to see new ways or experiencing ourselves in new ways in the world, to experience ourselves in a new way in the world, okay? And not to be blinded by our own limited perceptions. Yeah? This is all of what's coming online here. This is all what is to be reviewed, with a fresher perspective through examination, self-examination of the beliefs. We can come out with new, fresher ways of experiencing ourselves in the world. As I said, not to be blinded, if we're not going to allow ourselves to be blinded by the limited perceptions we carry and defend. And then back to this point about the soul. As I was saying, that the soul transcends our physical vehicle, you see. The soul transcends your physical vehicle. So the identity, your soul, your I, your isness, yeah, is not tied to your human, but this may have to be another show. But look, your soul is not even tied, all right? It's not limited to the race you believe you are as an identity. You see, when you depart this earth, okay, or when you depart this dimension, walk through the door of transition, your soul does not hold on to the earthly categorization, right? Your identity has been categorized in from an earthly perspective. You're an African, you're Indian, you're Chinese, you're, whatever, black, white, these type of labels. Your soul ain't none of that, you see. Your soul has chosen this particular vehicle and lineage and culture you've come through, okay, for it to mature further and grow further, okay? and develop more power in a particular thing or mature in a particular way. Yeah. So so this is a thing now where, when people get attached to these false identities, um, when your soul does not have your soul, your soul ain't African, your soul ain't black, white, Chinese, polka dot, Japanese. These are all man-made constructions. Your soul ain't limited to none of that stuff. In fact, your soul could have chosen to incarnate in an Indian or a white person, you know, Anglo-Saxons or some Nordic Celtic, your soul could have incarnated in that, okay? Because it's your soul that knows, hey, your soul doesn't have prejudice in it. Your soul is going to use what it is going to work with for its own further maturing and growth and development. That's your soul. So you could have been as a soul, you could have chose to incarnate in into the black race, ethnic group, but you could have been in a white person's body or a Chinese person's or Japanese, Remember, it's your soul that contains all the memories of your prior lives or experiences in a physical vehicle here on earth, okay? And your soul is the wisdom to know, okay, for what I want to further maturing or grow and expand to know more of the infiniteness of myself, to remember, I will choose this vehicle, this race, because the dynamics in this particular, in that particular setup is going to be the catalyst for my for the soul's further development in a particular area. You see what I'm saying? Say it's about unconditional love and you're born into a black race where you have, on this earthly plane, you've been taught to believe things about yourself, which is very erroneous, or identify with what others, have labeled you, okay? Or even trauma you may have experienced in the very own race you've incarnated into, okay? You got souls that have been in a race that was oppressing another race, and now that soul is incarnated into the race that's being oppressed, okay, by the very race that soul was in a previous incarnation. You see what I'm saying? You see the whole idea of expansion in our consciousness and examining the so-called truths that we hold on to is to transcend this earthly manufactured concept that keeps you in a prison, okay? And limiting your growth and development because of all the prejudice and erroneous beliefs that one is holding on to, and the false identity that people will defend, hate other people based upon their sense of identity, that doesn't like this other race or this other one who looks a certain way, all of this is really mature crap when it comes to the soul. The soul looks at all of this stuff as really, it's like, wow, look at this child play, look at this childish nonsense. So it's your soul that is you that wants to grow and expand through these experiences to transcend them. And there's great value the soul sees in these experiences, okay? That from the human perspective, you just feel you're catching hell down here. You see what I mean? And the hell is based on the beliefs we carry that makes us experience suffering. Suffering is where you're dealing with hell. There's no such thing as another dimension you're going to go to. Is another place called hell. That's made up by man in order to control the ignorant ones. By interpreting esoteric knowledge or spiritual knowledge and teachings in a very literal way. Which then keeps the ignorant in control through fear and man-made up ideas of original sin and hell and purgatory and all of that type of stuff. Purgatory means to purify, all right? Purging. Hence why hell is always, usually associated with fire, hellfire, and you can experience hellfire or that burning in your chest, yeah, as certain emotional dynamics, emotional traumas coming up in order to be felt. So you can purge it from your system, purge it from your heart. You know, when it says cleanse my heart, it's talking about cleansing out, washing out from your subconscious these erroneous beliefs in separation from your immense goodness. Yeah, that is part of your own inherited birthright. You see what I mean? Which holding on to man-made beliefs, that keeps you away from it because you believe you're not worthy because you're we're all sinners, you know, that type of stuff. When sin actually just means to miss the mark. You know, it was an old archer's term in England back in the 14th century, 15th century and stuff, where an archer, you know, would be aiming, you know, to hit the bullseye, you know, and if he missed it, he would be, you know, the term, oh, you sinned, you missed the mark. Okay. But then from a theologian interpretation or religious interpretation, it's turned into all of this, oh, you've sinned, shame, guilt, you've fallen short from the grace of God and all of this type of nonsense that people buy into and believe. And then if you believe you're inherently wicked, look at that. You believe man is evil, man is that. Well, if you're told, it's like a child, if you tell a child from their little babies, you know, little children growing up, that they're bad, and oh, that's a bad child. You even hear our parents talk about their children, you know, oh, that's a bad one. Oh, he's a bit of a, you know, they use negative statements, and the child picks all of that up. So then when you end up finding the child now starting to act out real bad, you know, doing stuff, you know, always finding themselves in prison. Why? Because why is that happening? Because if you're impressing those false ideas onto a child to make them believe that's what they are, they can grow up to be that. Okay? If you're not praising and injecting the good or making them acknowledge their innate goodness, yeah, then if you do that, they could make better choices, okay? Feel better about themselves and make better choices, yeah? They will be able to tap into their own self-worth. They value themselves, yeah? But if you're constantly criticizing and judging and saying stuff, even if you're chatting and just saying it, oh, as a playful thing, that stuff's nonsense because the subconscious doesn't understand a joke. Your subconscious doesn't understand a joke. It just says, well, boy, if this is what you feel is true, because if it's impressed, because the subconscious is only responding to feeling, okay, what is felt to be true, and that's what then the subconscious is going to think, oh, this is what you want, this is what you want more of, huh? And then then you end up having a reality, you know, outpictured for you that you're going to be personally experiencing as your reality, not realizing that it's input output, man. You know, what you put in is what you're going to get out. So it's important to understand this stuff. And why I'm talking about planetary, you know, this is where I talk about the planetary movements that are taking place within inside of you, within inside your own consciousness, because you contain it all. Okay? And all of these archetypes, known as signs, are cosmic centers within yourself. And you don't just have 5 senses, you have 47 senses. So 42 plus 5 makes 47. You don't just have what they call 7 chakras. Well, you know, you got more than that. You got 12. It goes higher depending on what plane of existence you're going to incarnate on. Okay? Because, again, this physical body can handle so much of our energy. Yeah? It vibrates at a slower frequency to your soul. And now with all of these energies ramping up, this cosmic, through the Lion's Gate, the portal, which cosmic energy. Now these energies that's coming in, it's not the changes that's coming in through you and another individual. This is cosmic call, you know? This is why I said I'm, you know, cosmic call mystic. That's why I call myself that, you know, I define myself, you know, and I'm not limited to what I may use to define myself in a particular moment. This is how we should be, yeah? Because we have the power of self-definition, not what others who are not dwelling and experiencing themselves within your temple to define you as. And this is what, for centuries, we've been having on this planet. a group of other individuals choose to define other people um, as poor or weak or wicked or you know and or the less privileged or the minorities. Huh? I mean, other people defining other people in ways that those people are not defining themselves, but they take on that definition and start to identify themselves as poor people, oh, the disadvantaged, the minority. Huh? These are other, you're allowing others to define you, you know? And that is where you're dealing with sleepwalkers, you know? You're here to be self-created. You create yourself because you're a creator, you see? So with the cosmic clock, there is the cosmic timing of where certain things are to come into activation, you know? Like, you got an alarm clock on your phone or watch or whatever. You got alarm clock, you got clocks on your phone. So you can set the alarm clock to wake you up at a particular time, okay? So when it reaches that time, it's silent until it reaches that time that it's been set to activate in order for you to wake up to go into a certain level of activity, for you to become aware and realize yourself, okay, in a more of a broader, a deeper, and more authentic way. You see what I mean? But there has to be also the clearing or getting out of the way corrupt ideas in order to make the space for more of your expansive light to fill it, to be present within you. You see what I mean? For your soul to eventually be you become conscious, yeah, of yourself as the soul, and the soul takes dominion over your thoughts and feelings, your mind and your body, okay? And now you're moving in harmony with your soul's objective, your soul's mission, you see? Now you're in harmony with yourself, you see? You're working with yourself, not against yourself. And many beliefs that we contain and harbor to actually works against yourself, yeah? And then it makes you want to do harmful things to other people because of the way you feel inside of yourself and what you believe to be so, you see, to be true. So, yeah, man, who gets out of this gets out of it. I mean, if you do, if you resonate with all of this, what I'm saying and sharing in my unique way as an Aquarian and a mature Aquarian, because where you're dealing with the degree that a planet is in your sun sign, it shows you the level of maturity you are at, or how you're just still growing. So this full moon is going to be at 22 degrees Aquarius. So it's in the last 10 degrees, all right? And so when you're dealing with a planet, any planet that's in the last 10 degrees of a sign, especially if you got the sun in those last 10 degrees, like myself, I got my sun 29 degrees Aquarius. So that makes me a matured Aquarius. If you got the moon in Aquarius and it's at, from 20 degrees onward, then that means you have more of a emotional maturity as in that sign, in how that archetype operates within you. You're operating in a more of an emotionally more mature way, a more of a mature emotional way, or you are of a more mature emotional state or level of that sign. Okay, so therefore this full moon in Aquarius is also at 22 degrees Aquarius, opposing the sun in a Leo at 22 degrees, is about a level of maturity. Yeah, maturity must come out of this throughout all of the whatever's come up for individuals, what has ever come up for folk. There's to be a maturity, a growth that takes place through this, an emotional maturity, okay? Maturizing in you able to be more true to the intrinsic self, yeah? So yeah, talked straight and flat out, y'all, for 2 hours. And I think I've touched on the things I wanted to mention. So I think I've governed that. Uh, I've covered all of that. So it will just be elaborating more on what I've already said. So this full moon, after the Lion's Gate we've had on the 8/8, where the cosmic energy that was coming in, that has been coming in, these cosmic waves, is to expand your awareness. There has to be a desire to want to know yourself beyond what you're believing now. Yeah. And then the cosmos itself is going to work with you because you're dealing with the inner and outer cosmos. The cosmos is within you, the microcosmos and macrocosmos. Those of you who've heard this term, the micro refers to you, your inner cosmos. Okay. And the macro is the outer environmental, the outward picturing of what you have within yourself. So really what is to be experienced here is that when it goes as above, as what's in the heavens, I mean, look at the beauty when you look into the heavens, man. I mean, it's awe-inspiring. You can be awestruck. You're just like, wow, yeah? All of that beauty of what you see when you even look into these pictures in space and stuff like that, or when if you're looking through a telescope or just looking up even in the heavens, in the skies, which is the heavens, your higher consciousness, you see, heavens, yeah? And on a clear night, I mean, it's like, wow, how you can be just awestruck looking at these star configurations, these star constellations, Well, we carry that within ourselves, and we're here to bring that beauty and wonderfulness, that goldenness, to add to creation. We're here to experience and bring that stuff and impact the earth with all of that, not with the destruction which is coming from the lies we hold on to and unresolved emotional traumatic dynamics that are suppressed and held onto in the basement of our consciousness. So we need to clean them out, and most people would not take the necessary steps willfully and consciously from their own volition, self-volition, to do this introspection. So you got the cosmic clock that's gonna, like an alarm clock, go ding, it's gonna, these transits gonna trigger off, activate, okay, these moments in order for further to push you to, because the universe, actually, the cosmos is actually supporting your soul to fulfill its own purpose. The cosmos is supporting the soul to fulfill its incarnation objective. So work with yourself, not against yourself. And just something else to add. Something else to add is to say that you have the adversity that, you see, look, you got a lot of folk in the government, a lot of folk in these institutions and so forth. They work with the occult or hidden aspect of astrology, which is why certain things, certain elections, certain events, certain TV programs, certain stuff they put out at particular times, that correlate with certain transits and activation cycle points, in order to harvest the negative reactions that, if you're dealing with the collective and the masses, which, as I said, the movies, the zombie movies, represent the general public. All right? And many people love to just jump on what they hear. Gossip about somebody, some story, some version. More time people have their own stuff. They're assuming they know what someone else is thinking. They're assuming they know what someone else is doing. And their own stuff that they're not dealing with it themselves, they use that to project onto other people and say, this is what you're about, when really it's a reflection of what they're about, you know? But they can't see that. They remain unconscious to the unconscious, subconscious content, emotional dynamics that they suppress and repress. So now they just use others as a canvas, a fleshy canvas to project, to project their stuff that's coming from their inner realms. Okay? So you have how these moments in time and space can also be used to manipulate people in a negative way. Okay? And a lot of people just take in a lot of negativity. You know, the title of some of these movies, the title that's of some of these, especially these soaps or these series that a lot of women do get caught up in. And they're seeing some guy treat a woman so bad, and they're in their emotional stuff, and they're talking about, oh, did you see what happened on the program last night? Or did you see how Harry treated so-and-so? Did you see, oh, it was horrible, it was terrible. And they're in that emotional state. And then when their partner or who they're with starts beating their ass out of them, what's happening? You creating all of that. Why are you holding on to that negative stuff that's being pumped and programmed into you? All of these are actors, and yet you're emotionally making an emotional attachment to or identification to these programs, these series that always leave you on a cliffhanger, an open loop. The mind doesn't like open loops. If you say to somebody, you're about to say something to them, and then you give it, oh, it's okay, it's all right, don't worry about it. You're gonna go, what do you mean? What are you gonna say? No, tell me. Because the mind doesn't like open loops, open circuits. It needs to have something completed. So they do, that's how they use that. They use those things on these programs, these TV series or whatever, in order to keep you coming back next strong, oh, for the next episode, oh, yeah. Just when it was over at the end, oh my gosh, cliffhanger they call them, to keep you addicted to the type of emotional state they want to imprint subliminally on your subconscious. Because as I said before, your subconscious, you can say your subconscious is blind. Your subconscious is impersonal. Your subconscious doesn't understand a joke. Okay? Your subconscious only takes on what's been impressed upon it. And if that feeling is positive, then the subconscious is going to reflect back that positiveness. If the subconscious is impressed with negativity and destructiveness, then that's what it's going to produce. That's what it's going to produce for you. Okay? So you have to be aware of what you allow in, to be impressed upon your subconscious, and how the nature of your own inner conversation that you're having. This is what I was saying on one of the shows, which I have called it, the nature of your inner conversation. Yeah? Because what you think in secret or feel in secret, will come to pass. If you remain on that feeling consistently enough, or if it's intense enough, strong enough, then the environment will become the looking glass for what we were thinking in secret that has now come to pass. So it's about consciously waking up and taking charge of your own destination, you see. And I'm not saying that there's no trials that you're going to go through or difficulties you're going to experience. I mean, come on. There will be. But you see, you will end up having the emotional endurance to do so, because when you start doing that work, you're going to see, hey, you're just going to get stronger in more positivity, positive energy as you align with more, self-appreciation, self-gratitude, self-love, where those beliefs that generate those feelings are going to be more in alignment with the truth of your soul, rather than man-made, manufactured, artificial design stuff, beliefs for you to consume. That's what it is. It's all about consuming. You're the consumer on the lower plane, while they're the consumer of your ass on a higher plane, because they're the one providing these things for folk to consume. And they consume your life force through the negativity you internalize, and then act out when they use these particular transits to activate what they've been charging and pumping in people that people allow to be pumped into them. Because it's not only physical food that you take in as nourishment or poison. It's the thoughts, it's the feelings, it's the ideas, it's the images, all of this stuff. You're actually digesting those energies. Okay, so select wisely. What you watch, what you listen to, what you read. Direct your own boat. So, okay, so y'all, this is yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up for this evening again. So this is my rendition of the full moon in Aquarius. Emotional maturity, to be able to shine acknowledge your inner unique light, having the courage to be, having the courage and the strength to trust in yourself, and through um, through the insight that you will have, or through all of what's come up, man, through this month, and so all the emotional shadow stuff, shadow work that comes up to be cleared, and now Jupiter going direct, which you may end up finding you having a more of a fresher, more expanded, embodying more of a fresher, expanded point of view, where the limited truth you were holding on to, is beginning to fall away as you begin to think deeper upon the things you're seeing in society and why is things structured this way, and looking into your own self, your own life. What kind of quality of life do you want to live? And it's your choice whether you want to be destructive or constructive, but it's to understand that there is innate goodness in one, and you don't listen to these theological man-made lies that they teach people to feel about themselves, to perceive themselves as something less than the wholeness, of the source they come from. And you have to look at the word healing and health. It's derived from the same word. It means whole. It means whole, wholeness, wholesome. So if you're not healthy, or you're not dealing with healing, it means that you're buying into a separative belief that is not enabling you to experience and realize your own intrinsic wholeness. Okay? So on that note, I'm going to, call it a night. And I will catch you on the flip side, okay? All right? And know that love is the only real emotion in the universe. Not the love in the personality sense. Not that grabbing on and manipulation and, punishing someone if they haven't done what you demand them to be, or the role you want them to play out in your own personal hologram. We all have our own unique individual soul destiny to fulfill. And we're not here to be the versions of what others want to frame you into. Okay? And as I said, you're even beyond the race of the corporeal form that you're in. Your soul is just using this, working with this for its further growth and development in something it wants to, master. Okay? So on that note, so let's catch you on the flip side, y'all. So I'm tuning out now. So let me just speak to someone in the studio here. Leon, are you there? Leon? Okay. Yeah, I'm signing out now, okay? So yes, so take care, y'all. And yes, this show will be titled Full Moon in Aquarius. All right, become emotionally more mature in oneself and have the courage and the braveness to be true to thyself. Okay? All right. Good shadow hour, y'all. Oh, and do remember, press like. I should have said this at the beginning. Press like, thumbs up, y'all, if you do like this. Okay? Just press like. Don't just view it and, if you like it, press like. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Good shadow hour.